The Great Hall of the Galactic Union was one of the most impressive places in the known universe. Its walls shimmered with living crystal that reflected the colors of 100 worlds. Floating lights moved like slow comets under the high ceiling, casting a soft glow on the long circular table where the galaxy's most powerful leaders sat. This was the place where disputes were solved. Alliances were formed and new civilizations were welcomed into the Union. That day, the newest guest was from a small, distant planet called Earth. Humanity had only just been invited into the Union after decades of proving they could travel between the stars. When the tall doors at the far end of the hall opened, everyone expected to see some great warrior, a figure who could inspire fear or respect. But instead, a man walked in who looked ordinary. He was of average height, with dark hair slightly messy from the wind outside. His uniform was neat, but simple, marked only with the blue and white emblem of Earth. His name was Captain Elias Ward, and he walked with a calm, unhurried step. Whispers started at once. "That's him. That's Earth's guardian?" one alien whispered in a voice like clicking stones. "I thought humans were stronger. This one looks soft," another said with a quiet laugh. Around the table, some delegates exchanged amused glances. Others smirked openly. Elias seemed to notice, but he kept walking until he reached the center of the circle. The chairperson of the council, an elder being with silver skin and eyes like deep water, spoke first. "Captain Elias Ward of Earth, you have been chosen as your people's guardian in the Union. This is a position of trust and responsibility. Do you have words to offer this council?" Elias bowed slightly. "I am honored to represent my world. I will do my best to protect our people and serve the peace of the Union." The words were simple, but they were met with light laughter from some of the seats. A tall, scaled alien leaned forward, his gold eyes bright with mockery. "Tell me, human," he said, "if war comes to the Union, will you fight with that polite smile, or will you hide behind bigger worlds?" Another delegate, with long antennae, curling from her forehead, added, "Perhaps Earth is sending you as a test, to see how long you can survive among real guardians." A few chuckled. A few more didn't even bother to hide their laughter. Elias looked around the table, his calm brown eyes meeting theirs one by one. His voice was steady. "Every world has its way of fighting. Sometimes strength is not in muscle or weapons. Sometimes it is in knowing when to use them, and when not to." His answer was met with more murmurs and even a scoff. The scaled alien leaned back in his chair, unimpressed. "We will see, little human. The galaxy is not as gentle as your blue sky." The meeting continued with discussions about border disputes and trade agreements. Elias listened more than he spoke, taking quiet notes. Whenever he did speak, it was brief, a suggestion here, a question there, but his words showed he had been paying attention to every detail. By the time the meeting ended, most of the council members still didn't take him seriously. They walked past him without even a nod, speaking to one another in low voices. Some even glanced back at him with amused smiles, as if certain he wouldn't last long in the position. Only one delegate, a short, round being with skin like soft moss, lingered near him as the others left. "Do not take their laughter to heart," the moss-skinned being said in a gentle voice. "Many here think power is shown by size or weapons, but I have seen small things change great rivers." Elias smiled slightly. "Thank you. I'm not here to impress them. I'm here to do my job." When he left the hall, the great doors closed behind him with a deep, echoing sound. Outside, the sky of the Union's capital world stretched wide, filled with ships rising and landing, carrying people of every shape and color. Elias looked out over the city and took a slow breath. They could laugh now. That was fine. One day, he thought, they would understand why Earth had chosen him. The Galactic Union's calendar was full of events, but the most important for new Guardians was the simulation trials, a test designed to measure a representative's ability to protect worlds in a crisis. It was not a simple training exercise. The simulation was advanced enough to mimic real disasters with frightening accuracy. Only those with quick thinking, adaptability, and leadership could pass. When Elias Ward's name appeared on the roster for the upcoming trial, the news spread quickly among the council. "This will be interesting," the scaled alien from the last meeting said to a group of delegates. "We'll see if Earth's Guardian can last 5 minutes. The antenna delegate smirked. "I think he will panic before it even begins." Elias heard the rumors, but he didn't respond. Instead, he spent the night before the trial quietly studying old records of past simulations. He noted the patterns, the mistakes that had cost others valuable time, and the unusual solutions that had worked. The next morning, the Guardians were gathered in a large circular chamber. Above them floated a massive holographic sphere showing a star system with a single inhabited planet. The chairperson's voice echoed through the room. "Your mission is to prevent the destruction of Colony Row 9. An asteroid swarm is on a direct collision course. The swarm is too large for conventional shields to stop completely. You will each be given command of a small fleet. Success is measured by how many lives you save and how efficiently you use your resources. Begin." With a flash of light, the simulation engaged. Suddenly, Elias was no longer standing in the chamber. He was on the bridge of a simulated starship. On the holographic display in front of him, he saw the swarm, hundreds of asteroids hurtling toward the small colony world. His fleet was small, only 5 ships, each with limited weapons and fuel. A typical Guardian might rush forward, blasting as many asteroids as possible. Elias knew that would waste resources before they reached the largest threats. Instead, he opened a communication link to the fleet. "We're going to use the planet's own gravity. Focus on pushing the largest asteroids into paths where smaller ones will collide with them. Let them destroy each other. Save our energy for the ones that break through." The fleet's pilots hesitated. It wasn't a standard tactic, but his calm tone convinced them to follow his orders. Meanwhile, across the simulation network, other Guardians took more direct approaches. Explosions lit up the asteroid field as warships fired continuously, each captain trying to show their power. But the swarm was dense, and for every rock destroyed, more slipped past toward the planet. Elias worked differently. He targeted a few key asteroids, giving them just enough push to drift into others. Large collisions sent debris scattering harmlessly into space. His fleet conserved fuel and weapons for the final stretch. Halfway through the mission, the simulation added a complication. A massive asteroid, larger than any ship in the fleet, appeared at the far edge of the swarm. If it hit the planet, nothing could save the colony. Elias studied the readings. "Too big to destroy," he muttered. Then he noticed its slow spin. An idea formed quickly. He ordered 2 ships to position themselves on one side of the asteroid, and fire controlled bursts, not to break it, but to change its rotation. As it turned, a smaller asteroid slammed into its side, shattering a chunk off and altering its course slightly. The rest of the fleet pushed debris into its path until the giant rock shifted just enough to miss the planet entirely. The pilots were astonished. "That actually worked," one said over the comms. "It wasn't about strength," Elias replied. "It was about using what's already moving." When the swarm finally passed, Colony Row 9 remained untouched. The simulation ended, and the Guardians found themselves back in the chamber. A large display appeared, showing the results. Some Guardians had saved parts of the colony, but at high cost. Fleets destroyed, resources spent. A few had failed entirely. Only one result showed total success with minimal resource use: Captain Elias Ward of Earth. The room was silent for a moment. The scaled alien's golden eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The antennaed delegate tilted her head, watching Elias with a new expression. Not respect yet, but no longer mockery. The chairperson spoke. "Captain Ward, your method was unconventional, but it was efficient. You saved every life in the colony with the least loss of resources. Explain your reasoning." Elias stepped forward. "In space, every object moves for a reason. Gravity, momentum, or collision. If you understand those reasons, you don't have to fight them. You can make them work for you." A few delegates nodded thoughtfully. Others still looked doubtful. But none were laughing this time. As the Guardians left the chamber, Elias heard quiet murmurs. The story of the human who redirected an asteroid swarm without wasting a single shot was already spreading. Elias didn't smile. He simply walked out, knowing this was only the first step. The real test, he suspected, had not yet begun. The next trial for new Guardians was very different from the simulation test. It was not about fleets, weapons, or disasters. It was about something far more difficult: understanding others. The Cultural Exchange Challenge was an ancient tradition in the Galactic Union. Every Guardian had to prove they could communicate, cooperate, and earn trust from worlds they had never visited before. It tested patience, diplomacy, and the ability to bridge differences. Most Guardians saw it as a formality, but Elias knew better. In a galaxy where so many species were suspicious of one another, understanding was a kind of power no weapon could. Replace a rival at the exchange. The hall for the cultural exchange was nothing like the council chamber. Instead of crystal walls and bright lights, it was a wide, open space filled with small pavilions, each decorated in the style of a different world. The air was thick with scents, sweet floral vapors from the gardens of Zytheria, sharp, metallic tangs from the forges of Tarkin Prime, and a faint spice from the warm winds of Orvani. Dozens of leaders and their families were present. The challenge was simple in words, but complex in reality. Spend 3 days here, visit as many worlds' representatives as possible, and leave with genuine bonds, not just polite agreements. First impressions, Elias walked in, wearing the same neat but plain uniform he had worn to the council. Around him, other Guardians had dressed in bright colors, rare fabrics, and even armor plated with jewels. They presented gifts, golden statues, rare crystals, exotic foods. Some glanced at Elias and whispered, "He came empty-handed." Humans must be poor or arrogant. But Elias simply walked forward, calm as always. He didn't head for the largest pavilion or the most influential leader. Instead, he approached the smallest tent, one belonging to a quiet representative from a distant farming moon. The elder there looked surprised. "Few start here," he said in a slow voice. "I like to start at the roots," Elias replied. "Without farms, even the greatest cities fall." They spoke for a while, not about politics, but about the moon's soil, the crops, and the way seasons worked under 2 suns. When Elias left, the elder's eyes were warmer, listening instead of showing Elias's approach was different from the other Guardians. Where others gave long speeches about their world's history and power, Elias asked questions. To the representative of the aquatic world, Thalen, he asked, "How do you keep your coral cities safe from storms?" To the Orvani desert clans, he asked, "How do you know when the great sandstorms are coming?" And then he listened, not just politely, but fully, without interruption. The more he listened, the more each representative began to share details they rarely spoke about. Some even called their family members to join the conversation. By the second day, something unexpected began to happen. The younger family members, especially the heirs of the leaders, started to follow Elias from pavilion to pavilion, curious about the quiet human who seemed to value every word they said. The moment of conflict, on the 3rd day, trouble began. 2 delegations, The scaled warriors of Drath and the crystal-skinned artisans of Varuna got into a heated argument over mining rights on a disputed moon. Their voices grew loud, and other guests began to step back. The cultural exchange had one rule: no fighting. But both sides were too proud to back down. Elias stepped forward. "I have an idea," he said, his voice calm but firm. "What if both sides work the mine together, but for different purposes? The Drath can take the metals for their weapons. The Varuna can keep the crystals for their art. That way, neither loses and both gain." The Drath leader narrowed, his golden eyes. "You suggest we share?" "Yes," Elias said simply. "The moon is rich enough for both, and if trouble ever comes, you will already know how to work side by side." The crystal-skinned leader tilted her head, light glinting, from her facets. "It is. Not our way. But perhaps it could be." Slowly, the tension eased. The two leaders gave each other a short but respectful nod, the first step toward peace. Recognition. When the cultural exchange ended, the results were tallied. Most Guardians had secured agreements with 3 or 4 worlds. Elias had formed bonds with 12, including several that rarely trusted outsiders. The chairperson addressed him in front of the assembly. "Captain Ward, you brought no gold, no jewels, and no grand speeches, and yet you leave with more friendships than any other. How?" Elias gave a small smile. "It's not about what you bring in your hands. It's about what you bring in your time. Listening is the most valuable gift in the galaxy." Some delegates looked thoughtful. Others still didn't understand. But among the leaders' families, especially their heirs, his name was now spoken with respect. And somewhere in the crowd, the scaled alien who had mocked him at the first meeting watched silently, his expression unreadable. Elias didn't know it yet, but the trust he had earned during these 3 days would soon decide the fate of more than one world, because the galaxy was about to face a danger no one expected. The cultural exchange had barely ended when an urgent alarm spread through the Galactic Union's capital. Bright red signals flashed on every public screen. Deep sirens echoed through the streets. Messages rolled across the skies from massive projection towers. "Emergency alert. Outer systems under attack." It was the kind of message no one wanted to see. A sudden threat inside the council chamber, the air was tense. Leaders from dozens of worlds spoke over one another. The chairperson struck the table with a silver staff to bring silence. "Our scouts report a rogue war fleet entering Union space," the chairperson said. "They have already destroyed 2 unprotected outposts. Their next target may be any of our border worlds." "Send our strongest fleets," one Guardian shouted. "Move civilians immediately," another demanded. But then the reports grew worse. The attackers were fast, unpredictable, and well-armed. Several Guardians who had rushed to defend nearby systems were now trapped or cut off. Elias steps forward. Elias sat quietly at first, listening. He studied the star maps being projected in the air. Each glowing mark showed an attack, a movement, or a blocked path. "They're not moving randomly," Elias said suddenly. His voice was calm, but it cut through the noise. "They're forcing us to scatter. Once our fleets are spread thin, they'll strike the real target." The scaled alien who had once mocked him turned sharply. "And what is the real target, human?" Elias pointed to a star system near the center of the Union's trade network. "Here, Varan 3. It's not heavily defended because it's considered safe, but it controls trade routes to half the Union. If they take it, they can cut supplies to dozens of worlds." A few council members frowned. "You cannot be sure." "I am sure," Elias said. "Look at the timing, the routes they've taken. They're not wasting any movement. I can lead a defense before they arrive." Forming an unlikely alliance at first, several leaders hesitated. Some didn't want to risk their fleets based on the guess of a newcomer. But others, those who had spoken with Elias during the cultural exchange, stepped forward. The Orvani desert clans offered fast scout ships. The aquatic Thalan sent carrier vessels with advanced sensor drones. Even the farming moon, humble as it was, sent 2 cargo ships to help move supplies. In minutes, Elias had a mixed fleet of ships from worlds that rarely worked together. The scaled alien stared for a long moment, then finally said, "Very well. The Drath fleet will join you. But if you fail, it will be your responsibility." Elias nodded. Understood. The race to Varan, 3. The fleet launched within the hour. From the bridge of his flagship, Elias coordinated the ships like pieces in a grand puzzle. Thalan drones, scan ahead. Orvani scouts, spread wide. Report any enemy movement. Cargo ships, hold back near Varan 3 and prepare evacuation routes. Drath warships, stay hidden until I give the signal. The attackers appeared sooner than expected. A dark wall of ships with jagged designs moving fast. They didn't expect resistance so deep in Union space. The trap Elias had no intention of meeting them head-on. Instead, he split the fleet into 3 groups, each positioned along narrow asteroid corridors near Varan 3. The enemy entered the first corridor, and the Orvani scouts released a burst of decoy signals, making it appear as if the main fleet was hiding behind them. The attackers turned sharply to chase, only to find empty space. That delay gave the Drath warships time to swing around from behind. When the enemy realized they were being surrounded, it was too late. Elias's voice came through every channel. Now, close in, but keep their escape route open. They'll run instead of fighting to the death. And that's exactly what happened. The rogue fleet, realizing they had been outmaneuvered, retreated toward the outer edges of the system, chased but not destroyed. Aftermath, when the last enemy ship vanished from the sensors, the bridge of Elias's flagship erupted in cheers. The Orvani captain clapped him on the shoulder. "Your plan saved more than Varan 3. If they had taken it, we would have lost trade for months." The Thalan commander's deep voice rumbled over comms. "You think like a strategist who has fought 100 battles." Elias simply replied, "Sometimes battles are won before they start." Back at the council, when they returned to the capital, the atmosphere in the council chamber had changed. This time, when Elias entered, the murmurs were not mocking. Many delegates stood in greeting. The chairperson addressed the room. "Captain Ward's leadership has saved a core world of the Union and prevented a disaster that could have spread to half our territories. This is an achievement worthy of the highest respect." Even the scaled alien spoke, his tone grudging, but sincere. "Earth's guardian has earned his place among us." Elias inclined his head. "I only did what anyone should do, use what we have together." But deep inside, he knew this was the turning point. The laughter from the first day was gone. In its place was something far stronger: trust. What he didn't know was that this trust would soon take a form he never expected. The rescue of Varan 3 was still fresh in everyone's minds. In the days that followed, stories of how Elias Ward had outmaneuvered the rogue war fleet spread across the capital. At first, the reports came only from those who had served in his mixed fleet. Then merchants began telling their own versions. By the end of the week, even children in the city were reenacting the battle with small toy ships. For the first time since his arrival, the mention of Earth's guardian no longer brought smirks. Instead, it brought quiet nods. And, from some, open respect. A change in the council. When Elias stepped into the council chamber again, the atmosphere was completely different. No one whispered insults. No one laughed behind his back. Instead, delegates who had once ignored him now greeted him warmly. The moss-skinned elder from the farming moon smiled as Elias passed. "I told you, small things can change great rivers." Even the scaled Drath commander, who had openly mocked him on his first day, inclined his head in acknowledgement. You think quickly in battle, human. The Drath respect that. Elias only replied, "We all fought together. That's why we won." But deep inside he felt the shift. The wall of doubt around him was finally starting to crumble. Unusual proposals, it began subtly. One afternoon, Elias received an invitation from the Varuna crystal artisans. They wished to sign a bond of mutual defense, a formal alliance, between their world and Earth. Such bonds were rare and usually only offered after decades of cooperation. The next day, the Orvani desert clans requested a similar agreement. Then the aquatic Thalen followed. Within a week, more than a dozen worlds had approached him with proposals to link their fates to Earth's. To the outside observer, it looked purely political, a smart move to align with the Guardian who had just saved a core world. But for some worlds, these alliances had deeper traditions. In Drath culture, for example, signing such a pact was symbolically referred to as a marriage, not in the romantic sense, but as a solemn joining of honor and responsibility. Among the Orvani, a bond of protection was often sealed with ceremonial adoption into their ruling families. By accepting these bonds, Elias was not just making treaties. He was, in the eyes of many cultures, becoming part of their families. Council. Reactions. When the council met again, whispers filled the chamber. "Have you heard? Half a dozen worlds have tied themselves to Earth's guardian. By our customs, he is now kin to multiple ruling houses. Remarkable. I remember when they laughed at him." The antennaed delegate from before leaned toward the scaled Drath leader. "If this continues, Elias Ward will have more influence than any of us." The Drath leader's golden eyes narrowed. "He already does." Elias's view Elias, however, did not treat these alliances as trophies. He took each one seriously, visiting the delegations personally, learning their customs, and honoring their traditions. With the Varuna, he wore a robe of deep blue crystal threads during their binding ceremony. With the Orvani, he shared a cup of bitter desert tea under their twin suns. With the Thalen, he swam in their ceremonial ocean dome, placing his hand on the coral stone that symbolized eternal watchfulness. Each time, he promised the same thing. "Earth will stand with you, as you stand with us." A private conversation. One evening, as Elias left the Varuna pavilion, the moss-skinned elder caught up to him. "You realize what you are becoming, don't you?" the elder asked gently. Elias gave a small smile. "Just someone trying to make sure no world stands alone." The elder chuckled. "Perhaps. But in their eyes, you are now more than that. You are part of them, a guardian not just of Earth, but of many worlds." Elias didn't reply. But as he walked away, he understood the truth of the elder's words. His role was changing, and, with it, the future of the Union. The shift in power. Over the next month, the alliances strengthened. Trade flowed more freely between Earth and its new partners. Joint training exercises were held between their fleets. Technology was shared. The council began to notice something else. When Elias spoke, many delegates listened before anyone else. Not because of his rank, but because he now carried the trust of so many worlds. The same council that had laughed at him now often waited for his opinion before voting. Even in matters that did not concern Earth directly, his calm judgment was sought. A new threat on the horizon, but peace never lasted long in the galaxy. One morning, reports came in of strange energy readings at the farthest edges of Union space. Merchant ships vanished without sending distress signals. Patrols found empty systems where colonies should have been thriving. The council began to argue again. Some wanted to investigate, others wanted to strengthen defenses first. Elias listened. In silence, his mind already working through possibilities. Whatever this new threat was, it might require more than military strength. It might require the kind of unity the Union had never truly tested. Closing scene. As the meeting ended, the chairperson pulled Elias aside. "Captain Ward," they said quietly, "whether you like it or not, you have become the Union's center of balance. If we face another great danger, you will be the one to lead." Elias nodded slowly. "Then I hope I can live up to their trust." Outside the chamber, leaders from multiple worlds were already waiting for him. Varuna crystal robes shining, Orvani sand jewelry glittering, Thalen water beads catching the light. It struck him in that moment. The same people who once doubted, his worth now stood with him side by side, and somewhere deep inside, Elias knew the greatest challenge was still to come. Months had passed since the rogue war fleet had been defeated. The galaxy had begun to notice that Earth's guardian, Captain Elias Ward, was no longer the quiet, unimposing man who had first walked into the council chamber. He had become a symbol of trust, wisdom, and unity among worlds that had once been suspicious of one another. Even on Earth, news of his actions had inspired scientists, diplomats, and explorers alike. They had always known humans could survive, but now they saw humans could lead. A gathering of allies, the Galactic Union had called a special assembly. Delegates from dozens of worlds arrived: Varuna, Orvani, Thalen, Drath, Zetheria, and many others. They were here not just to consult the Council, but to consult Elias, whose alliances and actions had made him central to Union decisions. As Elias entered the Grand Hall, he was greeted with nods, bows, and smiles, gestures of respect that contrasted sharply with the laughter and mockery he had faced months before. A young Thalen heir approached him, a bright smile on her face. "Captain Ward, I was there when the fleet was saved. Your calm and patience inspired us all. You taught us how to work together." Elias smiled. "I only did what anyone should do: listen, plan, and act when needed. The credit belongs to all of you." The leaders of Varuna and Orvani stood beside their heirs, each offering ceremonial gifts, crystal ornaments, woven fabrics, and small tokens of trust. Though symbolic, these gifts reflected the deep bond forming between their worlds and Earth. The Union faces a new threat. As celebrations continued, warnings came from the outer systems. A mysterious fleet of unknown design had been detected moving toward Union space. Unlike the rogue war fleet, this fleet operated in silence, leaving no debris or communication. Some delegates panicked. Others argued about defensive strategies. Elias studied the data calmly. "They are not attacking randomly. They are testing the Union, trying to see where we are weak. We must respond with unity, not fear." He turned to the assembled leaders. "If we act together, combining our fleet's knowledge and strategies, we can meet any threat. We cannot rely on force alone. Trust, cooperation, and timing will be our strongest weapons." The leaders listened. Some hesitated, still unsure about following a human. But the heirs and representatives who had bonded with him stepped forward, lending their support. Slowly, the others agreed. A plan. That bridges worlds, Elias devised a complex strategy, drawing on the strengths of every allied world. The Varuna would provide long-range surveillance with their crystal arrays. The Orvani would transport resources and troops swiftly across systems. The Thalen offered sensor networks in the oceans of colonized planets, while the Drath coordinated fleet maneuvers using their precise timing systems. Elias himself would act as the central coordinator, linking all communications and making rapid decisions. His calm presence reassured even the most skeptical delegates. "This is no longer about Earth or any single world," Elias explained. "This is about the Union, about protecting everything we value." The confrontation, when the unknown fleet arrived, they were unlike anything seen before. Sleek black ships moved with impossible speed, their weapons silent until they struck. Most Guardians reacted by firing immediately, but Elias held back. "Observe first," he instructed. "Don't waste resources on what you do not understand." Using data from Allied sensors, he predicted the fleet's movements and directed the combined forces to create safe corridors for civilian evacuation while positioning warships to block strategic points. The unknown attackers attempted to break through the defenses, but every move had been anticipated. Thanks to Elias's strategy and the coordinated support of multiple worlds, the fleet was gradually forced to retreat. By the time the last unknown ship exited Union space, no lives were lost, and no world had suffered major damage. The Union had survived, stronger and more united than ever. Recognition. Across the galaxy, when the battle reports reached the Council, the reactions were extraordinary. Leaders who had once doubted him now spoke openly of Elias's genius. The scaled Drath leader smiled broadly. "Earth's Guardian has shown wisdom beyond the expectations of our species." The chairperson addressed the assembly, their silver eyes glimmering. "Captain Elias Ward has not only defended a world, but he has united many. His actions have preserved peace, strengthened alliances, and inspired courage across the galaxy." Delegates applauded, and for the first time, the words of mockery from his first day seemed like a distant memory. The bonds of many worlds Elias now formally accepted the symbolic marriages and alliances offered by multiple worlds. Each bond carried ceremonial significance, not personal romance, but trust, loyalty, and shared responsibility. With Varuna, he pledged to protect their art and culture. With Orvani, he promised to stand beside their deserts and cities alike. With Thalon, he vowed to watch over their oceans and colonies. Even the Drath recognized him as a guardian who could be trusted with their honor and fleets. Through these alliances, Elias became not only Earth's guardian, but a guardian for many worlds, a bridge between cultures, a protector of peace, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. The Guardian's reflection. One evening, after the celebrations had quieted, Elias stood on the observation deck of his flagship. Below, stars stretched into the distance, each system home to 1,000. Lives, he thought back to the first day at the council. The laughter, the doubt, the sneers. How different things were now. He smiled faintly. They laughed, he murmured to himself, and now they trust. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers, yet unseen. He would remain vigilant. He would continue to listen, to learn, and to act when needed. Because being a guardian was more than strength, more than cleverness. It was responsibility to every world that had chosen to trust him and to every life in the Union. And as he watched the stars, Elias Ward, Earth's quiet but resolute guardian, understood something profound. Humans might be small in a galaxy of giants, but they could build bridges that no fleet, no weapon, no power could break. And that was what made them extraordinary.